everyone, I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. I'm joined this evening by Sarek, one of our Royals at the ranch. And in this Training Tuesday video for Tuesday, December 21st, 2021, we've got another boa and a python going head to head in a similar behavior. The boa that you're gonna see is named Rowena, and she is 3 years old. I've had her since she was 8 weeks old. And the python that you're going to see is named Boreth. He is 4 years old, and I've had him since he was 2 years old. They're both doing a similar behavior. Both of them are completely shifting out of their primary habitat onto a station. After they completed that behavior, I moved the station, I cleaned both of their enclosures, I put the station back, and both snakes put themselves away without me having to initiate any action to get them to do that. Without any further ado, I'm going to just let you watch their training sessions, and then we're going to talk about them when they're finished. Please note that I did cut out part of Rowena's session because she just waited at her enclosure opening for a really long time before we got to this point here where she actually started moving out. Boreth's training session is complete and in real time. I did not cut any of it out, and I didn't edit it or speed up the footage at all. This is just as he trained is how you see it. So now you've had a chance to watch both of those training sessions. Now I want you to think about why each of the snakes might have done the striking behavior at the end of their sessions. Do you think that it was a prepotent response? In other words, just reflex because they associate the target with food. Do you think it was out of frustration? Do you think it was out of fear? Do you think it was just a lack of impulse control? Pause the video if you want to for a few seconds and then come back, and I'll tell you why I think each of those two snakes struck at the target at the end of their individual sessions. Okay, so here's what I think. Knowing each of the snakes and having worked with each of the snakes for quite a while, I believe that Rowena struck at the target out of a prepotent response, a lack of impulse control. I say that because the behavior I asked her to do was really easy. She just had to shift out of her habitat and onto a flat station that was directly adjacent to her habitat. And the target was very close to her. She didn't have to do anything complicated, but she struck at it right away. It seemed to me that she just didn't have the patience to wait. It was just an impulsive act, and that she meant it when she struck. If there had been food there or something for her to grab onto, that food or other object would have been grabbed onto and she would have had a really strong grip on it. With Boreth, I think that he struck at the target at the end out of frustration because he had been so patient for so long. His behavior was much more complicated. His station was much further away from his habitat than Rowena's was. So he had to traverse a greater empty space between the edge of his habitat and the station. And then when he got to the station, and you saw that he fell once into sort of that empty cavern in between, then he gets to the station, and I have him do quite an intricate maneuver to wrap his body around that station so that it's completely out of his habitat, because I wanted to move the station with him on it out of the way so I could clean. So that was complicated. It had a lot of different steps to it, and he was very patient that whole time. And when we got to the end, and then I asked him to pause at the target and wait and hold in position, I feel like he had just had enough and he was frustrated and he wanted his reinforcement, and that's why he struck at the target. But I could be completely wrong because I don't know exactly what they're thinking, and I can't know what's in the mind of each of those individual snakes. I can only speculate based on how well I know the individual animals and on the behavior that I observe. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I do want to mention that their times were pretty close. Rowena's time was about 1.5 minutes from shifting out to getting her reinforcement, and Boreth's time was 1:51 from shifting out and receiving his reinforcement. I didn't count the time for them to go back in. So their times were pretty close, but keep in mind that Boreth had to do a much more complicated behavior than Rowena did. She just had to come out and go onto a flat station adjacent to her enclosure, and Boreth had to come out and clear a space between his enclosure and the stand, and then he had to coil his body around the stand in order for his whole body to fit on it. So when you judge these two snakes, I want you to keep all that in mind. I also want you to keep in mind that I had been working with Rowena since she was 8 weeks old and she's now 3, and that I've been working with Boreth since he was 2 years old and he's now 4. So just give me your opinions in the comments. Let me know what you think about the striking behavior. Let me know what you think about the different behaviors that you saw within the boa versus the python. And until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind and love your animals.